So we're going to do this. I kind of wanted to go through a couple quick things and just kind of talk about Vim for a little bit because our boy Bram has passed away. If you guys didn't see the message, it happened on August 3rd. He was 62 years old. Obviously, Vim was his personal project that became larger than life, and everybody loves it. I think Vim is probably the most well-known computer word practically of all time. It's right below "Can you fix my printer?" The next thing people know about is Vim and being unable to exit. So, I mean, that's pretty incredible to get to that level of software. And so I just wanted to take a moment, enjoy one of his talks. R.I.P. Bram, obviously a big fan of Vim over here. My little quick story about Vim is that I was really good at the arrows, the shift, the control, jumping and highlighting. And before I ever even used or knew about Vim, I was just like really speedy and really enjoyed it. And I always tried to play like StarCraft. I memorized every little keyboard shortcut in NetBeans, which is the editor I used all the way up until I had a C# job, which I was forced to use Visual Studio. And then from there, I got my real job, as I like to call it. And I had to use IntelliJ. And so even in there, I was super quick. And then somebody said, hey, why don't we try Vim together for a week? I bet I could get faster than you. And I'm over here thinking, you know what? I'm pretty fast at the old arrows and keys. I bet I could be pretty good at Vim. Started doing it, and within 1 week, I was just like, this is the greatest thing I've ever used in my lifetime. Now, when I say Vim, I mean Vim Motions, Idea Vim inside of IntelliJ. And I continued to use IntelliJ up until like 2016 until Yunong Zio convinced me to use Vim full-time. And so I started using Vim, and I loved Vim. I used Vim all the way up until 2020. And then I started using NeoVim from 2020 till now. So always been a huge fan. And so I think this will be a great time to enjoy a nice little bit of a Bram video. We're going to play it on 1.5 speed just because it is a long video.
In a different form some years ago in Holland. And I think none of you were there. So it's all new to you. But I did update it with some new stuff. So hopefully it will be interesting. There's a big crowd now, so I'll try to answer questions near the end. But if there's something that you don't understand on the slides or something like that, just shout.
By the way, I am looking a little green today. Why am I looking so green today? I got like a new lighting, and I'm still trying to figure it out. And I got also a new camera, so I'm looking probably pretty crispy. Look at how clean those hands are. Look at that hand. Look at how clean that hand look. You can even see like my old skin wrinkling. So if I look a little green, I'm sorry. It just is what it is. But let's enjoy this talk by Bram, which is 7 Habits of Effective Text Editing 2.0.
Okay, let's get started. So text editing, that's what we're talking about. I think we all know the problem that we're working with text the whole day, with email, whatever you're working on with log files, HTML, documentation, etc., etc. If I look at myself, I spend most of my day editing text. If I'm not working on Vim, then it's email or something else. And it takes an awful lot of time. So if we can improve our text editing skills a little bit, that helps a lot. We can get more work done.
I don't use Vim, by the way, or I don't use Vim to edit my emails, right? I know people do that. I've never done any of that whole thing. You know what I mean?
Mostly I'm doing meetings or stuff like that. So maybe somebody can do a presentation on how to do effective meetings. That would help.
You can't.
So I'm going to try to explain to you how to get more work done in less time. So if you're paid by the hour, you can leave now. Of course, I'm using Vim for all the examples.
By the way.
That doesn't mean that I think that Vim is the only text editor that you can use or should use. As a basic rule, if you have a text editor that's good, that can do everything you need, has enough features, it does the work, and you can still expand it to do the work you expect it to do, then just stick to it. I mean, why learn another editor when you already have all the skills in the one you're using? So if you're using Emacs, you're happy with it, I'm not going to tell you to leave it alone, unless maybe you think it's not good. So, also, I sometimes see people, even software developers, using Notepad or similar editor. I mean, that's terrible. I mean, you're wasting a lot of time. So basically, you either use the editor that you have that you're happy with, or you switch to Vim.
There's some good truth in there. I do think that you should try, if you've never Vim motioned at least, try out like a month of using just Vim motions. Try a keyboard-centric, flow to your life and see kind of what that does for you. Because honestly, it can really change your perspective on editing and all that. And not only that, but it can actually just make coding fun. You know what I mean? And so there is something to that is, how do you put a price on that, right? It's pretty good.
There's no other rule. So otherwise, I'm not going to discuss which editor is best. That's another discussion and not very interesting. I think most of the people here are using Vim anyway. Oh, let me ask that. How many people of you are actually mostly using Emacs? Okay.
One in the chat if you're using Emacs.
We'll try to convert some people today.
One in the
I won't
chat
ask how
if
many
you're
people are
using
using Vim, because
Emacs.
then it all ends up, so let's not do that. Okay, how I'm going to explain these habits that I was talking about in the title. The first step, the very important step is, well, all three are important. So the first step is how to know that you're doing something
Mods, can we
inefficient.
get everyone that typed 1 banned,
Mostly that's when
please?
you're repeating the same thing over and over and over again, and you think, well, there must be a quicker way to do this, there must be a smarter way to do this. For example, what I do myself quite often is, you have a function name, somebody reviews your change, and says, this is a terrible function name, use another name. So you have to go all over your code and change one name into another. Well, obviously, if you're going to find the name, type the same name over and over again, then not only is it not efficient, you're also going to make mistakes that you have to fix later. And it's even getting more complicated, like if you have 5 names that you have to change into 5 different names, and there's a pattern in how you change them, then obviously you don't want to type that. You want to find some way to do it quickly.
It's kind of funny because obviously this is pre-LSP era. And so I think this is probably, this kind of actions are maybe lost on people. I think it's kind of it's very interesting. In fact, the thing is that I think what he's going to talk about is quick fix list for that one. You can do a little cdo s/whatever/G, even toss in a C if you need to confirm each one of those. But I really actually, I use cdo a lot still. I still do just straight like text renaming from time to time. I find it very useful, even to this day. And so, yeah, it still happens if your dependency changes the name. Yeah, it's these things just happen, and you still need that tool no matter what. And so I just find that like, even if these things feel antiquated or perhaps out of touch, they're actually still extremely useful, right? I use them quite, like, especially if I'm doing something with log files and I want to change some stuff to be more consistent or anything, like just the ability to use stuff really quickly. It's very, very nice.
And the trick here?
Yes, this is on 1.5 speed to just kind of speed it up. It's an hour and 20-minute talk, so, cutting it down a little bit is nice.
Is that you have to do this while you are working. So every time you're working on something, you have to kind of look back like, what did I do the last 5 minutes? Did I repeat myself? Can I do this in a quicker way? So you have to detect your inefficiency. That's actually quite tricky, but I'm going to give examples, of course. Well, find a quicker way. Well, every good editor has ways to do things quickly. The trick is, how do you find them? You don't want to spend the whole day to find a better solution. You want to find it in 5 minutes. So I'm going to give you some ideas of how to find better ways, quicker ways.
This is pretty much the same reasons I used to give for using Rust, but now I say it for OCaml, if you're wondering.
And the last and also important is how to make it a habit. You can read the whole reference manual of Vim, but that doesn't mean you know the commands. You don't really use them.
Yes.
So you have to make it a habit to actually use them. Otherwise, you'll have to think about every key that you type.
Yes!
And you really want to, get the commands in your fingers done automatically.
So I've said this. I mean, I've made a learning Vim tutorial motions kind of map video like how many times now. And one of the biggest things I always say is, don't try to learn everything at once. It's the easiest way to learn nothing. A friend of everyone's is a friend to none, right? And so it's like you have to start with the simplest things and get those so ingrained in your body that you don't think about it. And then you just like add one key, and it just makes you start going faster and faster, because adding one thing fixes something that just really pisses you off. And then it can just set into your heart so quickly, versus when you have to do this really, like, if you have to think about all the motions you're doing, Vim's not fun to play, right? That's not a fun thing to do. StarCraft is fun once you know where everything is. When you want to build a probe, you're like, BE, give me that BE, right? Or, you just give me that E, right? You want probe. And so it's just like, it makes sense. You don't think about it. It's just like, it just happens. And so just once you make that kind of I believe it's spinal cord. Spinal cord is where all your muscle memory is stored. So once your spinal cord can respond to stimulus, then it's like, that's like the fastest. That's when you really hit the maximal speed.
It must be a habit. So basically what you need to do is, you have to see the problem, you have to find a solution, and make it a habit. That's quite simple, isn't it? So, okay, let's go on. Yeah, about the title, I mean, why 7 habits? Why not 3, or why not 42? Well, actually 42 would be a different book. I saw this book and I read it, and I think it's quite an interesting book, and gives you a lot of tips about work and life and family and all kinds of things, and I can recommend it for normal, reading. And I also like the title. So I made the title for this presentation a variant on this title. Of course, there's also another variant on this title. 7 Years of Highly Defective People. I just love Dilbert. This is really a great book that explains a bit about the characters around Dilbert, and why they are drawn the way they are drawn, and how they developed over the first 7 years. That's really a nice book, especially if you like Dilbert, of course.
I am a defective person.
Okay, let's go on with the first habit. This is something simple to start with. So you have this code, and you're wondering, where is this variable used? I just use argc for an example. So what do? You search for the name, and you keep pressing and to find all the occurrences of that variable. And then you search for another variable and do the same thing again. You browse through the whole code, and then you type a long name. But if you look closely, you can see there's a typo in there, so you don't find anything. Well, this is what happens a lot if you don't know the commands of your editor. So you keep typing a lot of text, typing a lot of commands, and wasting a lot of time, obviously. So what's a quicker way? Well, what's important here, how do you find a quicker way? In this example, I will say that you just search in the help for Vim, and you find something about search highlighting. And you think, well, I'm searching, I want to see what's going on, so highlighting will help. And so you turn on the highlight search option. Of course, you need to search a little bit in the help to find this. And especially the star command. Well, I think most people that actually use Vim know about the star command, and especially if you looked on the website. I think it's actually the first tip, one of the first tips.
Star is fantastic. I use star all the time, but I don't use a lot of highlighting of search. I feel like I keep going back and forth on using highlighting of search or not using highlighting of search. I think as of right now, whenever I'm in the process of searching, it highlights it for me. And this is called incremental search. Very, very nice, especially when you're doing something that involves like .star, and then I want to go NSE, right? Like you can see this, it makes doing like little regexes really, really nice, and you can see why it doesn't work right. So like if I do an I, you notice that the last I is over here, but the first I is right here. And if you're not really familiar with regexes and you push an I, you may be surprised that it goes all the way to the end and not to the first one, right? And so you kind of get to have this nice little thing right here. And so, I don't know, I guess I only ever used incremental search, and I've never used, I don't really use search highlighting, though maybe I should try it out.
So obviously what you then get is that you get all the things you were looking for highlighted. And it gives you a great overview of where a variable is used. Of course, this is just a small screen. If you have one of the bigger screens, you have a much better overview. And that works really great.
I think one thing that's probably changed a lot in this world versus that is that, like, let's see, I'm right here on this variable. One thing I can do is I can do VRR, and I can see where it's being used in a quick fix list. So this may have come, this is obviously using a language server, so he didn't really have this in his talk, but this just makes life so nice to be able to have that. So perhaps that type of searching isn't as useful as it once was.
Of course, the star command you use when the cursor is on a word, so you type star, and it looks for other occurrences of that word. So how do you make this a habit? Well, the easiest is to switch on highlight search in your vimrc file, in your startup file, so it's always on. I do that. I always have the highlight search option on. That does mean that for every search you do, you see all the matches.
You don't always have a language
server.
server.
You have a whole yellow screen. That happens. And so I added the hint here that you can switch it off for a moment, and then it's switched on automatically again when you search for something. Again, you have to make it a habit, so just repeat that star command. You have the option switched on, so that works. And you have to use it again and again. And after a little while, you don't even think of it. You just look at the variable, you automatically press star. There's, of course, many other ways to move around quickly.
I love the
just
star.
to mention one. Folding was added in Vim.
Oh, this is in Vim 6? Are we at Vim 6 at this point? Oh. I assume we're later than Vim 6, but either way.
6. Some people like it, some people don't. So you'll have to find out yourself if you like it or not. Maybe I can...
Has anyone used folds? Are people really into folds? Type 1 in chat if you're into folds. I kind of feel like I might need to have like an arc where I try to use folds. I've never really used much for folds. I've always wanted to, but I just haven't, I don't know, I've just never really loved them.
Switch, give a live, oh, that's working.
Oh, he edits in light
So
pane.
what I have here is just a source command, a source file. Does this work?
All right. What is this int doing floating way over here? You got to answer me this question. What is this? What am I missing here? This is the return. This obviously is the return value. But that is way different. I have never seen this coding style in my lifetime.
Yeah. Here you see a marker in the source file with 3 brackets. And that actually marks
Clang
an area
format?
in the code
Okay.
that can be folded away. So I can just click on the minus sign. If I click right, okay, and then it's closed. And if I just move around to some of the other folds, I can move in just by moving the cursor, and it opens, so you can see the code. That's quite convenient. So there's a few commands that you can use with folds to move around, so you have a nice overview of the functions in your file. And you can move around and then move the cursor, and it's open, so you can see the code.
Isn't there, I mean, I know I've seen plugins that have like symbol lists for you. This kind of is like a symbol list, effectively. If again, I'm curious if folds would ever work, but it feels just like a symbol list would kind of give you the same stuff you need. But maybe you don't need, I don't know. Anyways.
Just one of the many ways to quickly move around. Okay. Okay, second example. If you're working with X Windows, you have these terrible function names that you have to use all the time. I mean, it's just impossible to
you
type
should see
right in once.
DirectX, like old one, all capital letters.
There's
all
small print, there's
letters.
capital prints, there's everything. You type it wrong all the time. One solution that people I've seen using is to copy-paste the name. So you have like a list of the names, you copy-paste them. That's a little bit quicker, but still, it's a bit slow. There's a much quicker way. So how do you find this method? Well, what I often recommend is just ask around. Ask somebody, a colleague or a friend, how do you do this? And that's actually one of the best ways to find a better way. Of course, you have to do it. I mean, don't be shy, ask a question. And this colleague of yours that, of course, is much better in Vim, then tells you to use the Control-N command or the next insert mode completion command.
Ah.
And what it does is you type some of the letters. Try to.
And
so
just use your buffer?
You type like 5 letters, which is the start of one of the function names. Then you hit Control-N, and Vim will complete the whole word for you. Well, if you're lucky.
I know that so many of you have only been programming for like a year, 2 years. Maybe you're just starting, but you have no idea how magic that is. All right? Like, completion before completion was a thing is incredible. Like, you can't even understand how much of a life changer it was until you've been in that situation. It's just,
I mean, if you look closely, you see
goodness.
here there's like 16 function names that start with the same 5 letters. So you might have to hit Control-N a few times to
They
get
do
to the
take
right
it for
one.
granted. They have no
But at
idea
least
how
that's
hard it
a
was.
lot less typing and a lot less mistakes than when you would try to type it directly.
The only bad part about specifically this kind of completion is I mistype things, and then my buffer starts getting the mistyped version, and then I start reusing the mistyped version, and then all of a sudden I just have a mistyped version everywhere in my code. This has happened many a times to me. It's just the worst.
This doesn't only work for like, strange function names, it also works for the name of
Autocomplete
people
those
you're replying to in
typos,
an email.
baby!
I mean, if you reply to somebody and you type his name wrong, that's not very good. I mean, not very nice. So I use completion a lot, especially for people from strange countries that, have these names that are really hard to type sometimes. I mean, no offense, but not everybody has English names or Dutch names, so it looks really strange.
Dutch names. If you don't have a Dutch name, it looks strange.
In Vim 7, I discovered
Everyone
that often
feels
you want
that
an
way
overview
about their
of all the
language.
matches that exist. So I made this fantastic high-tech menu. And I mean, doesn't it look great?
Omnicomplete,
and you can actually get an overview of all the matches that have been found. And you can use the...
A classic Dijkstra, that's a normal name, okay? 2 vowels, 7 consonants, completely normal name. Can we just stop thinking that Dijkstra's weird looking? Dijkstra's completely normal.
cursor keys to scroll through them.
This is awesome, by the way.
Dummies who don't know exactly.
Like, look at this. For those that haven't done anything with, didn't live in life before autocomplete, this is incredible, okay? What is, Vim 7 is what, 2003? Here, I actually have the list right here. Vim 7, 2006. NetBeans was just like starting to come to prominence with its JDK autocomplete. Its JDK autocomplete was out of this world in this time. And so Vim having on-the-fly spell checker plus these little pretty menus and all that, oh my goodness gracious. You guys don't even know how amazing it was.
Vim does this.
I was born in 2004.
And also, what it shows is it's actually omni-completion. And omni is a term that we invented to, avoid a very long name. What this does is actually, it looks at the context, so it doesn't just look at the word before the cursor, it looks a bit further back.
Look at the names
in this case,
here.
It finds this pointer.
Hulen,
it looks up the type of the pointer, finds out that it's a structure, and the structure has members, and then the members are obtained, and these are the alternatives that you get. So you don't even have to type anything.
Good autocomplete!
Yeah. The cursor could have pointed still the arrow there, and you just type Control-N, and you get all the possible names that you can type. That can
don't
be
even know
valid
about life.
hopefully. Well, omni completion is a complicated thing. It currently has been implemented for a few languages, like C, Python. I don't think Java really works.
Java never
but
really
it's still
worked.
under development, and we could use some help. So if you know a language very well, maybe you can help developing it. It's all written in Vim script. You don't have to program C or anything. But
You know, I'm not gonna lie to you. I think I'd rather program C than Vim script. I never had a big love for Vim script. In fact, that was one of my biggest motivating factors for switching to NeoVim, was just being able to have Lua. I got so stuck on Vim script so many times. It's a very complicated, simple language. Simple does not avoid complication, you know?
I have to admit it's not really easy. But with a little bit of effort, we can get it done.
Yeah, okay.
And sorry about the ugly menu.
It's only
Okay,
magenta.
next habit. I'm not a native English speaker. I do know English quite well, I think, but I still make lots of mistakes, especially when typing. Vim now has a spell checker, which is very nice, actually. I think the next slide shows that. The spell checker, you can switch it on, and it will highlight. In this case, I was using the GUI version, GVim. So it will just underline the mistakes with a nice wobbly line. And then you can go there and either use the mouse or use keyboard commands to see the alternatives for fixing that. So in this case, it's just that the first letter was wrong. This works. It works quite well, especially if you have only a few mistakes in your text. And if you don't know the language very well, so you don't know the correction, this works really well. It's supported for about 30 languages, so that's quite good. But still, if you have common typing mistakes and you have to fix every one of them in this way, that's still taking a lot of time. So you think there must be a better way, and there is. In this example, I'm using a way to find the solution.
I saw Began use this, and I always wanted to kind of use this like auto change, like te will go into the, just auto magically for you. I've always been kind of, you know what I mean? I've been kind of curious about just creating like an auto fix list for me, because there's just things I do incorrectly.
You know, the Vim Mail List archive is really
like
a
occurrences
of all kinds of tips and suggestions and answers to questions.
I literally have never spelled occurrences correct.
Just search in the archives, and mostly you will find a solution. Actually, this one is somewhere in the archives, if you can find it. But of course, now it's on the screen, so that's a lot easier. What does this do? You basically take the word that you misspell. So you wanted to type the, but you type the, and you make an abbreviation for it.
I can see the bad habits.
Abbreviation. So that's really simple. It's one of the basic things in Vim. You just have to think about actually doing it. And then you can also, as an extra, highlight the typing mistakes. So when the correction doesn't happen for some reason, because abbreviations don't always kick in, you can also highlight them so you can have an overview. So then you get this. So you have some text. And this is something I typed and typed wrong. Actually, I had a hard time typing this because the corrections kept kicking in and correcting me. So I had to switch that off. So these are just a few examples of common typos.
Auto stuff tends to
type Linux instead of Linux.
It's good. Kind of a good thing is that I always forget how much auto stuff bothers me. It's why I don't even use like auto pairs. Auto pairs bothers me enough that I don't want it on. So I can see why I probably haven't invested time into this now that I think about it.
And you type an extra C in. Of course, these are words that are really wrong. You would never have them in your text. So then you can make an abbreviation. Some words are just, you still type them wrong, but they're also valid words. So then you'll have to decide yourself if you want to correct them or not. Continue typing all your mistakes and it corrects them for you automatically. The only thing is you have to make a list. I have made a list for myself because I always make the same mistakes over and over again. I feel like some of these things, this part is probably less depending on your keyboard and what you're used to.
Useful these days.
So you'll have to make your own list.
Maybe not that part, I don't know.
If you want to make this a habit, one thing you need to do is if you notice you make certain typing mistakes, you have to add that word to the list and find the correction. And of course, for more advanced users, you can make a mapping to actually do that. So
I kind of feel like I'm on the team. You shouldn't automatically change those things. You should learn how to just type it correct to begin with.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm kind of either or on that.
Well, when I started working for Google, I found this whole pack of code that's fantastic, but quite difficult to understand. So you have to somehow find a way to maneuver between all the files, find out how it works. And that's quite difficult if it's a lot of code. Of course, this inefficiency is very easy to detect. You just can't find your way. The solution is a bit more difficult. In this case, I give the example of you look in the Vim quick reference. Of course, there's also the user manual, which is very useful. You just search around in some of the pages on the Vim.
Let's go, quick fix.
And the quick reference is very good because it's compact.
Quick fix is like,
have some keywords, so if you look for the right keywords, you can find
I don't know how people,
what you're looking for.
how you use any editor that doesn't have a
so
quick
for
fix
moving around
list.
in files, I have two examples here.
There's
One of them
nothing
is using the C-tags
more
program.
important than quick fix.
I'm wondering, how many of you know C-tags? Okay, quite a few, but not everybody.
I don't understand how you don't do it
Of course,
without
C-tags
it. It's
generate a
crazy.
text file.
C tags are okay, right? In our modern era, you
what I
don't
mostly
really
do
need
is
them.
if I find new code, I generate a text file.
But
And
I
I do
mean,
it like
I
this,
guess you could
with
have
the
them.
dash
Location
R,
lists are
which
great
means
too.
recursive.
They are good. They
And
are
with the
very,
dot,
very
means the
good.
current directory. So basically, you have to move to the right directory and say, generate a text file for everything below this, the whole directory tree. Don't do that for a big tree because it will take too long. But normally, for libraries
Quick
and
fix,
stuff like that,
I don't
it
really
works
get
just fine.
the quick fix.
Then you can
have used
use
it.
the tag command
Really,
to
quick
jump
fix is
to a tag.
incredible.
And you use tnext if you have multiple matches, which especially happens in C++
Here,
code.
while
There must be
he's
lots of matches for the
talking
same
about the
word.
C tags, I'm going to jump
You
over
can
here.
move around, or use tselect,
So,
which is another text command.
here,
There's
let's
lots
use
of tags
reverse.
commands. You can just look it up in the help file.
Let's use reverse here.
The important thing is that tags
So I added
only find
reverse
where
to
things
quick
are
fix
defined.
list right here.
So where a variable is defined or where a function is defined.
So quick fix list effectively allows you to have a list of items that are all put into something that is persistent. So when I leave here, it's still there. So when I go C open for quick fix, C for quick fix, it's still there. And if I go C next, it goes to the next item in the list. The next item in the list. Obviously, I just have those mapped, so I can find everywhere reverse is, and it's just set in my quick fix list. So I don't have to think about it. C for quick, of course. And then you can do cdo, right? So I can go like this. Cdo, do a command over every item in my quick fix list. And I can go reverse and replace it with reverse me daddy. And I'll do it for everything. So it gives me all the places that it got changed, and boom. Reverse me daddy is now a thing. Obviously, I introduced some sort of weird issue there because I had the word reversed. We'll get over that. There we go.
You have to move through the matches. If there's a few matches, you can just use cnext and clist and other C commands to manipulate the list. And
love it.
There's one nice thing though, that if you have a lot of matches or you want to get an overview, you have the quick fix window. So you use the C open command. You get the quick fix window.
C open, beautiful.
There you can actually search around. It's just a normal text window, except that when you hit enter, you jump to the position that's mentioned there.
Yeah. That's also cool. I didn't even mention that, right? Where if you go...
well, of course, there's many other ways to move around. And,
I can actually search in here and be like, okay, where's reverse list?
Well,
oh, I want that one.
GF. You can just type that on any file name, and it will jump to the file, if it can find it, of course.
So it's like
the nice thing, it even works
search.
on hypertext links. We have the netrw plugin that does that for you. And most people don't know that, but it actually works. Of course, you'd see the HTML as HTML. You don't see it rendered. But still, it's very nice. An important thing is that the path option should be set correctly, because that's how Vim knows where to find your files. And they could be anywhere, so you have to make sure it's set okay. There's a few more commands. Actually, the
GF is really, really nice.
That's a capital I, searches in include files. So that's very useful if you have a lot of library
for those that don't know GF.
And you don't know exactly how they're defined or you can't find the documentation. You can search in the header file, the include files, and again, if the path is set correctly. I quite often just use the square bracket tab and just jump to the first match, basically. And hopefully that's the right one. And that's very quick. Unless you have a lot of include file, then it's slow.
I need to find one with require. I guess I don't use the term import.
That into a
whatever.
Anyway, you can do that yourself.
GF is great.
Let's work together. There's a lot of programs, especially about layout, email, lots of stuff that basically work with text but add something to it, like layout or some format like in a spreadsheet. The problem is that those editors are okay, but it's sometimes so difficult to type a lot of text, and the WQ appearing in your text is not very nice. So that's one of the inefficient things. And sometimes when I have to write a document with markup and has to look nice, then what I mostly do is something that you have to find out about. Of course, again, the trick is, how do you find out how to do this? Well, in this case, I give the example, ask on the Vim mail list.
Internet.
There's lots of people on the Vim mail list that are excellent in giving very nice answers to your questions, and very patiently, and understanding that you don't know everything. And it's actually amazing that there's a few people that seem to be doing nothing the whole day but answering questions on the Vim mail list. And I'm so glad, because otherwise I would have to do that, and I just simply don't have the time. So let me thank all the people on the Vim mail list that answer the questions there. That's just great. So, okay, so you asked the question, and then somebody says, oh, just type your text in Vim as you like it. With just a trick, you switch off automatic text wrapping, if it was on anyway. You switch on the wrap, so the lines wrap. And you switch on line break. This is, of course, the essential part of it. That means that the lines are wrapped at blank spaces or special characters. So the words are not broken halfway, so it's much more easy to read. It's just a simple trick, but actually if you do this, you can have paragraphs of one line that you can copy-paste between your Word or OpenOffice or whatever and Vim. So you can edit them in Vim and copy them back. And that works quite well. Of course, it's still work to do the copying back and forth, but it's at least a lot better than what's, trying to type your text in Word.
Agreed.
Of course, there's one catch. You can't copy-paste the formatting. So if you have like bold stuff and underlining, that will be gone. It's not perfect. Yeah, there's other ways to do this, like
I think that's been largely fixed. Hasn't that been largely fixed?
Doesn't say that. There's another way is that when you copy and paste text, you can actually insert line breaks and remove them again. But I'll leave that to you to find out how to do that. Yeah, that's the problem. That still exists. Actually, I have to scan documents that I write if I don't
Dude, I
leave
get
something in
this
there.
all the time. I have those all the
Okay,
time.
just one more example that I was, it's going well, that I was thinking of. This is actually something I do when I release a new version of Vim or make a few patches.
I forgot to
is
show
I
you
have to
this.
check if there's nothing wrong on some kind of system, and the compiler doesn't warn for every error. So what I do is I run the Vim source code through lint.
I want to go right here, which is
and
8.8.
I do that actually with like 20 different
Look where my
combinations
cursor
of
is.
features. What I get is an awful long list with all kinds of warnings. And most of these warnings are for header
I went to
files,
8.
so I can't fix them. I mean, well, I could perhaps edit the
maybe
header
I'm doing
file
that
fix
part
program there,
right.
but that's a lot of work. And then if you go from
Pretty
GTK 2.1.3
That's
to the next
G
version,
capital
then
F.
it's all gone again. They're mostly GTK warnings, I'm afraid. So you have this long list of warnings, and it's very difficult to find the errors that you were actually looking for. So how do you do that? Well, quite simple, actually. This time you just think, okay, I can do it myself. So you don't ask anyone, you don't look on the mail list, you just do it. And you write this simple function, which is nothing but a global command that searches for the things you don't want to see and deletes them. Of course, the trick here is to make the pattern match the lines you want to delete and not match any lines you want to keep. So you have to think about that yourself. In this case, I do things like look for GTK and enum something, and then I don't have that in my code, so it must be in a header file. And the Perl stuff gives errors that match this, so they're all gone, and then it cleans up. Then I make a mapping for this, underscore CL. I have a lot of mappings that start with an underscore, because underscore actually is an original VI command. It's not properly documented, but it is a command, but you don't never use it.
I use
So
it.
you can actually use it for mappings without interfering with blocking one of the Vim commands. So that's a very good
like
thing
underscore.
for more advanced mappings.
I use
So you
it
call
in
your function.
all my macros.
Of course, this is to signal entering the function call.
For those that don't know, underscore goes to the first non-white space character. So if we have this, if I go capital I, it goes into insert mode at the first non-white space character. If I press 0, it goes to the 0th character. But often whenever I'm doing a macro, I start off all macros with underscore, because underscore just takes me to the first non-white space character, and I'm in normal mode. So I love underscore. Underscore is like a go-to for me.
And this part you put in your vimrc file or somewhere else.
That's a
Just so that
caret.
it gets sourced when you start up. And so
use
you
no
run lint,
caret.
you get the output, you clean up the output, and then you use the cfile command to load the file as a list of errors. So you can actually jump to the errors very quickly. And this is what I use. It's not much more. Well, actually, of course, the patterns, I have a lot more of them. Actually, I can probably show that. Let's see. Ah, there we are. So there's a few more of them if you really want to do it properly. And I keep updating this list. For example, if you upgrade GTK, then it will produce different errors. And it's quite a long list, as you can see.
That
This
list
is real. This is what I use.
terrifies me. That list is terrifying.
And again, you have to make this a habit, so just
Here's my auto delete list. I'm like, ah, no.
do it. Well, I do it quite regularly. The only thing is that lint runs a bit slow, so I don't do it every day. Of course, what I said, you have to keep updating those patterns. That's very important, and especially watch out for things that you remove that should not be removed. Okay, habit 7 is actually a different kind of habit. It's not really an example by itself. It's a meta example, a meta habit, which is a habit to do these things. I mean, I talked about the 3 steps and the 7 habits, and explained how you do it, and now you have to do it. Somehow you have to, when you're using the editor, you have to look back. What did I do the last 5 minutes or even longer? Is there something I can improve? It's very important that, like every day, you take a few minutes to think about that. And not just keep typing, because it's so easy to just forget about it, just keep going, and then you'll never learn. I like to compare that with driving a car. When you are first in a car, and your driver instructor tells you what to do and move the wheel, and you know how it works, but still actually doing it without hitting anything is quite difficult. So you learn one thing at a time. You learn to use the driving wheel, you learn to use the gears. Well, you use automatic gear, okay. Well, you learn all the parts that you need to know.
Imagine the world where people used to have to learn how to drive using an auto or a manual for the first time. Like just for a moment, imagine the feeling you had having to use a manual as the first way you learn how to drive. You can't even like press the gas properly, and you're out there. I mean, I learned how to drive a manual when I was young. You still do that? Oof. That's common in the EU. I mean, I love manual. When I went to the EU first time, or this is back when the UK was in the EU. When I did that, and I went to Ireland, I had to drive on the wrong side of the road, might I add, and with a stick. And I haven't driven a stick in like 5-6 years, so I'm sitting there going, I don't know, like I'm feeling real out of place at that point, driving on the wrong side of the road. None of the signs look the way they're supposed to look. I'm driving a manual. I'm shifting with the wrong hands, but the pedals are all in the right location. It's not like fully mirrored. It was very difficult.
The wipers and indicators and all the other knobs and turn on the light and everything. It goes one step at a time. The same for an editor. You have to learn one thing at a time and keep learning. The difference between a car and an editor
manuals,
is
yeah.
A car has only so many features. An editor has like 100 times many features. So there's a lot more to learn. So once you have learned to drive a car, you can learn to drive your editor. There's my pointer.
Edit responsibly, kids. Okay? Drinking and editing?
Okay.
Don't think so.
Let's skip that. Okay, how does film help you with this? Well, of course, lots and lots of features. I think by now in Film 7 we have most of the things that people use actually in there. I can't think of really big things to add that people would use daily. Of course, there's still a long list of feature requests, but most of the things are just for a few people that would use them, or they're very difficult to implement. Yeah, I'm not going to go through the list. You probably know about it. And well, I want to say one thing about automatic indenting. I don't know if you're using it. If you don't using it, you're probably missing out a lot. It's just a matter of switching it on, and mostly it works, especially for C code and a few other languages that are structured enough that it's easy to figure out indenting.
You just say a language called Seagull? That had to be like a translation. Oopsie daisy. There can't be a language called Seagull, is there?
Python, of course, is an exception, because there the indentation defines what it means and not the other way around.
C code,
So that's a bit tricky. But otherwise, it's a really great feature and saves you a lot of time.
It does not work in OCaml very well. I swear I don't know what's going wrong with my OCaml. I cannot get it to indent half the time.
Just doesn't work. Okay, so a summary of the 3 steps. And somehow it sounds so simple. And it is simple, you just have to do it. So you have to detect what you're doing inefficiently. As I said, look back at the 5 minutes that you've been working and think of what could you improve in those commands that you've done. Find a quicker way. Well, there's many ways to find out.
Closed captioning is very, very bad on YouTube. Quicker.
Read online help, ask the mail list, ask friends, search on the internet.
It's also really good.
Yourself. Write your own scripts. I know the Vim scripting language is very specific. It's not like any other language. But if you use examples, for example, most importantly, if you go to the Vim website, there's lots of...
Like, did you see that? I mean, it is pretty good. He said, for example, and it just did dash dash. Pretty, I mean, it's pretty good, but it can be really bad for weird words like Emacs or Vim.
Change a little bit, and it will do what you want. And of course, the third step, make it a habit. Make sure that you actually use it and get it in the top of your finger, so it's almost automatic. And I think one important thing to add here is that you have to do one thing at a time. I don't think you can just sit down one day and in that one day do all of this for everything you do, and then the next day you're going to use them. No, it's more like you do a little bit of it every day. It works much better.
I like that. 3919. Do a little bit every day.
Examples. How not to be effective.
Ooh.
One of the major problems is that your boss tells you that it has to be done today or yesterday. You just don't have the time to look into the help files or ask somebody how to do something quicker. And it's an obvious mistake that a lot of people make. So just take your time to do it right, and in the end you will be more effective and more efficient, and then your boss will be happy too. And the counterexample, I know a lot of people that just start reading the reference manual and want to learn every single command. You can imagine not only do they take an awful lot of time to learn everything, but they're also wasting time because most of it they're never going to use. And especially it's not going to be a habit. So every time they want to do something, they have to think, how did I do it? And carefully type their commands, and they end up being very slow actually. So don't try to learn everything, just learn the things that you need.
Let's go, Bram! That is such a W. Okay. That is such a W piece of advice.
Okay, a few more tips. Read the user manual.
Okay, whoa, Bram. Okay, I'm over here cheering you on, and now you RTFMing me right now? I don't know about this last one. That last one, little suspicious. By the way, TJ, when are you going to release the RTFM user manual you promised to do? Is it when I get blue hair? It could be. It could very well be when I get blue hair. TJ will also release his friendly manual, reading the user manual YouTube series. Yeah, too bad I can't read. Okay, August 21st.
Vim 7.
Do you want a guest reader?
Added quite a bit of text That was based on the Vim book by Steve Owerling. He wrote a very nice book for beginners, basically, how to learn Vim. And especially the first 20 chapters or so are quite good. So I took that text. Unfortunately, they allowed me to do that, to copy the text. And then I fixed some mistakes. I had to take out the pictures, unfortunately. And I added all the new things from Vim 6 and Vim 7. So it's quite big. And it's really set up so you can read it from start to end.
I'm not going to say this hurts my feelings, but it hurts my feelings. Okay, let's keep on going.
And you have some idea at least about all the commands. And from there you can actually jump to more detailed help. So that's very good. As I said, the Vim user mail list works really well. Don't be afraid to ask a question there. Just try to formulate your question properly. If you have something like, this doesn't work, how do I do that? Then nobody can actually answer your question. They just come back with more questions because they don't understand you. But if you formulate it properly, then I'm quite sure that within a few hours you'd have like a dozen answers, hopefully. And as I said, thanks to a lot of people that actually answer those questions. That's really great. Okay, that's the end of the slides. So let's have a few questions.
I'm going to end it there. I think that's a good place to end it. This was awesome. You know, I hope everyone takes a little bit of time, appreciate what Bram has done for our programming world, because even if you use VS Code, even if you use IntelliJ, even if you use pretty much anything, the reality is that you're probably still highly affected by Vim. Vim motions are still talked about. You're probably curious about learning them, or you already learned them and you already use them all the time. When you go into Gmail and you press J and it goes down per email, inspired by Bill Joy, creator of Vi, which Vim took its inspiration from and created Vi, improved Vim. And so it's like the amount of just like pure influence that has come through this world due to Vim is incredible. And so it's fantastic. Yeah, and if you haven't learned how to touch type, Vim highlights a very important aspect of becoming a programmer, which is to learn how to program, right? This is the charity Bram has been championing for so long. I think it was even their treasurer. Yes, there you go. And take a time, like I said, if you could this week, if you order DoorDash, if you do whatever, what I would love you to do instead is go get a bag of rice and beans, have a simple meal, and give to a charity in which people don't have meals. I'll do it. You do it. Everyone just go here and do this. I think it'd be a huge, huge W, right? So do that. It's simple, right? It's simple. I eat rice and beans only anyways. Well, boom, then you're good to go. But I mean, real talk. I mean, dramatically improving someone's life is an amazing thing to do. And so do it. It's fantastic. Take some time. Bram championed that. It's been in there to help the children of Uganda. That's been in Vim as long as I can remember. So go do that. Just go do it. It'll be fantastic. I think that's about it for Bram, or for a little thing for Bram. I just wanted to do this, you know. I felt hesitant about doing it for a couple reasons. One, I use NeoVim, and I know there's some level of I guess beef betwixt the two, which is stupid. I think everybody on NeoVim has huge respect for Bram. I have huge respect for Bram and what he built. Obviously, if Bram didn't do what he did, I don't even think I would have been a content creator. Like, real talk, the only reason why people watch me at all and how I started that is simply because I can edit code quick in Vim. Like, that's it. It's just a parlor trick. Bram created my content creation reality, right? And so, yeah, for me, it's like I'm super grateful. Yeah, some beef between some people in the community, but never beef between the maintainers. Yeah, that's how it always goes anyways, right? The community misconstrues things and blah, 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 blah. I started watching because of his tiny hands. It is true. My tiny hands and my quick Vimmings is really what got me off the ground. And not another dimension. I literally did this. That's how I got my first job. But real talk, you know, it's just, you gotta give respect where respect is due. And I think that he did an incredible thing. And it's amazing. I probably will never do that. I don't think I'll affect nearly as many people's lives as Bram ever did. I think most of us will never get to that point. A very few people get to ever do that. And like in my own like personal heroes book, I have like 2 programmers in my quote unquote heroes book. I have Carmack and Bram, right? That's it. Not a huge amount. Hopefully you guys all take a moment, enjoy it. Don't cause drama, because that's stupid. But the other reason why I didn't want to record this, I didn't want anyone saying that I'm trying to like get views off of some super unfortunate thing. I had a lot of respect for. I don't know Linus. I really did not like how he treated people. I know he's changed his ways. I just never really liked how he treated people. I don't have to have respect for him, right? He even says have respect. And I even watched a video about him talking, and I laughed about some of the things he said. But in the end, I didn't have the same respect for him as I did, say, Bram or John Carmack, right? I just didn't. I felt like they're more respectable people. You know, if I'm going to hang around with somebody, if I'm going to learn from somebody, you inevitably will also take a piece of that person with you. It's just how learning works. It's just how it always happens. No matter what you think, you will always become like the people you kind of learn from. And so I wanted to take that time to, you know, I want to learn from the people that I have, that I feel like if I accidentally took a small little piece from them, it'd be okay. You know what I mean? I just think that that's just me personally. And so Bram was one of those people that I think you could just take a small little piece from. So anyways, the name is the Primogen.